The campaign and the quest for delegates, Arkansas is included. The Supreme Court, the Scalia seat, and our senators. The Arkansas judiciary. Will some changes in selection and financing come about? And Arkansas unemployment, a trend to be treasured. Arkansas Week next.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.
This is Arkansas Week.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Arkansas Week. All politics is local, a certain speaker once said, and you know us. We can find a local angle in just about anything, so we'll start. Dr. Heather Yates joins us from the Political Science faculty at UCA. Wesley Brown, reporter and editor for Talk Business and Politics. Ernie Dumas, an independent journalist based in Little Rock. And thanks to all for coming in. We'll begin with a great story of our time, which is the race for president. And Heather, we'll begin with you. On to Arizona. Senator Clinton, Secretary Clinton went, as it turns out, with no appeal in Missouri. She went 5 for 5 or 4 for 4? 4 for 4. And on the other side of the equation, Mr. Trump did very well.
Yeah, so here's the rundown. So on Tuesday, what a week. Every single week that happens, I always look back at the Tuesday, I was like, what a week. So this week was Ides of March primaries, or the Titanic Tuesday, however you want to refer to it. So Clinton wins Florida, Illinois, Missouri, North Carolina, and Ohio. There was no contested follow-up in Missouri, so she swept on March 15th, and then Trump wins all but Ohio, so that means that Kasich is still alive, and Marco Rubio, suspended his campaign after losing in his home state by a pretty hefty margin. So that brings our delegate count for Trump to 673 out of the 1,237. About halfway, almost halfway. And then Clinton's numbers reflect 1,601, and that also accounts for 467 super delegates.
Well, let's find the local angle here. That, according to Senator Rubio, the quote establishment favorite in Arkansas, didn't do very well in the primary on March 1. He finished third, but he still claimed 9 Arkansas delegates. What happens to him?
So those 9 Arkansas delegates at this point in time will be released, and they will go elsewhere. And to where that elsewhere is the question, because they have, so Arkansas 9 delegates to Rubio, and then the remainder would technically be, to Trump. But if we are heading into a contested convention this summer, all 40 delegates from Arkansas could be in play, depending on what those rules governing the convention are.
Particularly after the first ballot.
Right, absolutely. So they are in play. Who they are in play for, to be determined.
And you only thought it got gritty until now. when it comes down over these convention years, we watched the struggle for delegates. Are you who you say you are, and will you stay hitched?
Well, that would be the key, and not just in Arkansas, but a lot of states, because Rubio, the other guys didn't get many votes, didn't get many delegates, but they have a few. Jeb Bush, I think, even has a handful of delegates, and some of it might be very crucial. Who you select, who at these state conventions, who you actually select, and how much loyalty they will have to their candidate. Because after the first ballot, typically they will be released, and that's when all the deal making will begin. If Trump gets to the convention and doesn't have the requisite number for the nomination, then there'll be some deal making, and perhaps with Ted Cruz. I mean, would he swap out and be the vice president? Or Rubio? He's not going to have any role in it, I don't think. But it'd be now Kasich and Ted Cruz. So that's where it could get exciting at the convention, and pretty bloody And of course, the Donald Trump says if I'm denied the nomination, there's going to be riots. So, but he's not for violence. You know?
Well, if not riots, certainly there could be some term. Well, let's take a look first at the arc, the trajectory of these two leaders right now. Starting obviously on Arkansas's first choice, which was Mr. Trump. He's halfway there. Arizona's a big prize awaiting him next Tuesday.
Well, there are a whole series of.
He could be stopped, but it's getting really difficult.
It's going to be difficult to stop him, but he may not get to that threshold. It just depends. Starting particularly in April, you're going to have a string of primaries. Quite a number of them, maybe 8 or 9 of them, winner-take-all primaries. Maybe it's winner-take-all by congressional districts. In some cases, like in Florida, you get all 99. But so you've got a series of that, and they start at the eastern seaboard with Maryland and Delaware, and coming across Pennsylvania, and all in Indiana and across the Midwest. So Donald Trump's going to do pretty well, you assume there. Ted Cruz has not done very well in any of those kind of primaries. Then it moves out to west, and I think in the caucus states and some of the other primary states out west, where Ted Cruz is probably going to carry those states. So it's pretty dicey for Donald Trump. Can he get to that threshold? My guess is going to be much closer to it than Ted Cruz. So that's going to be it's going to be a kind of a fiery dynamic. I think,
yeah, and I think the issue between now and then it's as you said, Donald Trump had said, if he doesn't get the nomination, and the establishment has come out, and you're starting to see people trying to make deals, but none of those deals have kind of really stopped his momentum. His momentum every week, it seems that he there's no way he can win Florida. He wins Florida. There's no way he can win Arizona. He wins Arizona. And it keeps going. And that's the thing and as we get closer to the to the end of the road, it's going to be tough for the establishment and the Republican Party to say we're going to deny Mr. Trump to be our party's nominee.
Well, they're struggling to find a way, but there doesn't seem to be a coherent strategy.
Well, California, it kind of ends up in California, which is a delegate-rich state. It's not winner-take-all, but a winner-take-most. So if Trump does very well, and I suspect he will do much better than Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz does not do well in these kinds of states. It's because of his arch conservatism, but so California could be crucial.
We're not going to try to, certainly not, incite anything here. But Mr. Trump used the frame, there'll be riots. Well, maybe not, but certainly chaos. There's already trouble brewing. There's a little thing called Rule 40B, which requires anyone to even be nominated at Cleveland has to have won not pluralities, but majorities in 8 states. There's only one candidate who's done that so far, and that's Mr. Trump, and he may be the only candidate to pull it off by the time now. I'm told the working assumption is the Rules Committee meeting before the convention will dump Rule 40, probably.
Try to. And there could be a rule challenge. And, so there's 3 phases of voting, right? There's the credential voting, so the delegates are seated, and then there's the rules, and then there's the rules and the rules challenges. And so Rule 40B could be challenged. I also see Rule 16 coming into play, too, right? So where there are delegates legally bound, well, they're politically bound, right? They go to Cleveland, they cast their vote for the candidate who won their state, or do they repeal Rule 16, releasing all of the delegates? It becomes an open convention at that point in time. And so what I anticipate is Trump will likely deliver on his promise of some sort of commotion. What that looks like, only time will tell what that looks like, but I could see actually some contention or some challenges of Rule 40B, Rule 16, or maybe Rule 40B comes into contestation if Rule 16 isn't repealed. So I think we could see some challenges in that second.
Whatever happens, I think it's going to be pretty ugly. I think it's going to be a situation where we're going to say, wow, I don't think we've ever seen this in a long time in American politics. And
1972.
If this was a pay-for-view convention, it would make the Ali Frazier gate just pale in comparison. Well, let's take a look now at the arc, the trajectory of our former First Lady, national and Arkansas. She's in somewhat better shape than as a front runner than is Mr. Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Tuesday, her sweeping wins in these 5 states really kind of took the wind out of Sanders' sails, and so he's still trekking on to Arizona. That's where he's focusing his work now, but he's struggling in the polls there. So Tuesday was what Clinton needed to gain the momentum and the traction, and to demonstrate that she is the nominee presumptive, and now all of her campaign language is now focusing on Trump. And you're seeing that from the Trump side as well too. So they are treating each other as the presumptive nominee, and so the campaign is being structured as such. So we'll see what happens in Arizona.
I think she's virtually assured of the nomination. I think there's no doubt about that. It's hard to see any pathway for Bernie Sanders, but there's going to be some embarrassing moments for her. He's going to carry a bunch of states. And there are no winner-take-all primaries on the Democratic side, and so it's going to be a distribution of delegates, and he's going to come very close to her, and so conceivably he could get more delegates from here out, elected delegates, than she does. I don't think so, but he could, and it's going to be a lot of parity. So he's going to go to the convention with, and he will hang in there, I think, all the way to the end, even though clearly he's lost the nomination, and he will be given, I presume, she will insist that he be given a prominent spot at the convention, and it'll be
he would insist,
and it'll be a love feast at the convention. Contrary, that's the scenario I think that everybody is counting on, she and Bernie Sanders, but distinct from the Republican convention.
Possibly a very good thing for Mrs. Clinton right now, for the Democratic side of ticket anyway, right now, that so much attention is focused on the GOP, because Mr. Sanders has already pushed her somewhat farther to the left than one suspects she would rather be. How much farther left, and how much impact could this have, do we see?
I still see, during the primary season, she's going to continue to work the left and speak to the left. But I think once, as Ernie says, she's the presumptive nominee. Once she gets it, I think she's going to moderate herself and go back a little bit to the right. But as you said, she's, as long as the primary and Bernie's in the race, she's going to continue to speak to the left.
The interesting thing here is that usually candidates on both sides more or less run to the left and right, and then kind of move to the center.
Right.
I don't know that the right is going to move that much. Can't really move that much more to the center this year.
And they've expressed that they don't really want to either, because just this week after Tuesday, there's this closed-door strategy meeting in Washington, D.C., and it's the reformulated or recalibrated conservative base in the party, definitely wanting to keep the party message right of center, and has really displayed no intention of moving to the center to get the median voter. Whereas Hillary, yes, Sanders forced her to acknowledge issues on the left, and issues that are important to the left mobilized base, mainly younger voters, education, the student debt, so on and so forth. But she's already, I think, kind of inching closer to that center as she's heading into Arizona.
More local in the national. The problems for the GOP nationally seem to be mounting, and one of them, it would appear, is the president's nomination of a successor to Justice Scalia. Now, this past week, if not before, both our U.S. senators, both Republicans, aligned themselves with the leadership in the Senate, which is no vote. But already we can see some of the Republican members feeling the heat and backing away from that pledge. Well, we may shake hands with him. We'll have him in for coffee, but we may not do anything more than that.
But it doesn't guarantee a vote.
Right.
We'll meet with him, we'll talk with him, we'll placate him, but no, we're going to hold it off until after a lame duck session, and then wait until the new president takes office, which it's presuming a lot about this election.
Yeah, and there's a lot of important decisions out there too over the next year. You know, when you have 4 like there's the EPA decision that's out there that's really important, and
got an abortion case.
Yeah, and once those issues come to the forefront, I think there's going to be more pressure that comes on the senators to do something because of these issues, especially if, let's say, the EPA or one of the abortion decisions go to the more liberal side of the court, then there's going to be a lot more pressure on them to at least do something, or because you've got the scenario, if Hillary becomes president, then you may even get a more liberal justice than the one that I guess Mr. Merrick Garland, the one that he has now. So that's the danger, that if you wait until a new president comes in, then it could be dangerous, even more dangerous for the Republicans.
And this nominee, Ernie, looks like...
Well, he's the perfect nominee. He's the perfect nominee for Barack Obama. He struck gold there, but not all Republicans. There's one, Susan Collins of Maine, a moderate Republican from Maine. She's up for re-election, and she makes no bones about it. She thinks this is an excellent candidate, and she would grant and she disagrees with her party. She would grant a hearing, and she would vote to confirm. She thinks he's an excellent choice. She said so in the past, and I think she's alone on that. Some others, like Jeff Flake and some others, are saying, well, they'll meet with them. But I think it's unlikely that they'll capitulate. I mean, they can't.
They can't. Yeah. There'll be riots.
The majority leader, the chairman of judiciary, are already on record saying no.
They're not going to do it, and they can't capitulate. They cannot let Barack Obama have this victory in the last year of his presidency. So he's had all these other victories, and that they weren't going to let him have. They're not going to let him have this one. So I think it's. I don't know what it would take to get the Republicans to capitulate on that.
Arkansas judiciary, some additional moves this past week toward changing to something our method of appointing appellate judges in Arkansas. Okay.
Well, the Joint Judiciary Committee of the legislature, the House and Senate, under Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, they're going to have a meeting. I forgot what, March 30th?
Within days, yeah.
In a few days. And they're going to talk about this, and the governor's interested in it. He's interested in having some kind of a merit selection system of, I don't know whether they'll call it merit selection, but something other than an election of appellate judges in Arkansas. There's a lot of interest in that. The Bar Association, the senator from down in Union County, Republican senator, has introduced a bill about that. So also some interest in ethics legislation, both with the judicial elections, disclosure, and so forth, but not just for judicial elections, but for all the other races as well. So there's talk about including that. The governor would include that in the call for the special session in April. We may have 2 or 3 special sessions along with the fiscal session. So that may be coming, but the Constitution already provides that the legislature, and they can do it at a special session, I presume, as well as a regular session, that the legislature can simply put the issue on the ballot of an appointive system of electing judges, and people, so they could do that, and we'd vote on that at the general election this fall, and then presumably the legislature then would come back and set up the system, which would not be a popular thing to do. I think. I think the voters would want to know exactly what we're approving before they set up such a system. But so there are all kind of options at play.
None of the proposals that I've seen or heard of anyway involve life tenure, by the way.
Not likely. No, I think they're not likely to do that, life tenure.
But there is some concern about dark money, and it's coming from multiple quarters.
Well, even members of the Supreme Court, Justice Courtney Henry, who lost her race for Chief Justice, partly, we don't know to what extent it was responsible, but there was some dark money dumped into the campaign against her. But I think some of the same forces that supported her in the past 2 years ago used $400,000 in dark money to destroy the candidacy of her former husband's law partner. So she's had a change of heart now. Dark money is a very bad thing. So there may very well, I think there's a consensus about that. You need to do something about to make more disclosure at any rate on the.
Well, I think the momentum came in when the governor came in and basically after the election and basically said I think we should do something about this. All the dark money coming in, we should go to, and I think that's where, as you said, there's been a consensus, and I think that's where the momentum came. If the governor would have sat out on that issue, I think I don't know if we would even be talking about it. It'd be another issue.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is we have had 3 Supreme Court races and 2 cycles, in which dark money has figured prominently.
Right. And one angle into this discussion of reform was an ethics reform trying to push for disclosure. But the challenge with that is that because we're dealing with 501c4 groups, which according to the IRS tax code, they do not have to disclose their donors. And so having ethics legislation only puts restrictions on 501c3 groups or a campaign organization itself, which has disclosure enforcement, and there's an enforcement mechanism in place. So the conversation has turned to, if we can't force disclosure and have disclosure as regulation, which that doesn't tend to work very well. So now we need to consider merit selection to insulate these judicial elections from third-party organizations dumping upwards of $600,000, $700,000, almost $1 million at a state level race.
Dark money, a ray of sunshine. That's the Arkansas unemployment rate. Dr. Brown?
Yeah, we
best in almost forever.
Yeah, since 2000, our unemployment rate is at 4%. It's dropped 6 percentage points in the last 2 months in the first 2 months of 2016. Our lowest unemployment rate has been
0.6, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, 0.6. Yeah, and our lowest unemployment rate ever is 4.2%. So we're close to that. But I think there's a difference between when we were in 2000 and what we are seeing now. The labor pool is different, and there's this issue of workers who can't be accounted for, these unaccounted for workers in the labor pool, people who are not looking for jobs, older workers who just said, I'm not going to do it. Yeah, I'm out of the workforce. So, I think, and also the other issue is that our labor pool, the wages are inching up. But the issue that's driving our job force now is the productivity. Productivity gains it's amazing that even with let's say a manufacturing plant with fewer workers, they're getting more productivity. That means they're working more and getting less. So at some point, this is you're going to have to those questions are going to be in Arkansas. The governor came out recently with we don't have. That some of the jobs are not being filled because we don't have the technical skills or the computer skills or the educational background to fill these high-tech manufacturing jobs, these jobs that are in the labor pool. So it's great news. Our job market is improving, but there's still some real weaknesses in several sectors, specifically manufacturing and mining. So. It's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, but still, or at least not at the moment, any interest rate action from the Fed.
No, the Fed came up, Janet Yellen and the Federal Open Market Committee came out this week, and basically in December, they said we're going to start a normalization policy. And basically, they were saying over the next few years, we're going to inch up the interest rate. But then James Bullitt, who is out of St. Louis Fed governor, he basically said we need to back off that policy because, one, oil and gas prices are continuing to move down, and that has caused inflation to stay below the 2% target. So what we're seeing now is
CPI fell again.
Yeah. So there's still some real weaknesses. Even the GDP report that's coming out next week. In the second quarter, we had 3.9% growth, but the last 2 quarters, 2% and 1.9%. So if we have one more month behind that goes down, that's officially a recession. So there's still some real weaknesses in the economy. The job market is not where it's supposed to be. Oil and gas prices are good for consumers, but not good for business. So it's kind of a mixed bag when you talk about what's happening in the economy.
Energy prices still on a generally downward trend, or at least stable, although there have been some upticks.
Yeah, there's been an uptick over the last week. Yesterday, the price of crude oil jumped above $40 a barrel for the first time in 3 months. So, and that happened because of the interest rate policy, and also because OPEC, I think they're kind of getting antsy. So they're thinking about holding a meeting next month where they're going to say, okay, let's just stop producing oil, stop drilling for oil, stop exploring for oil. And what that would do, that will cause I guarantee if that happens, the price of crude oil will shoot back up into the $80, $90 range real quick.
Well, how much could domestic production offset that, and how fast?
Well, domestic production, we're getting a lot of shale production, but a lot of these companies have basically taken their drilling pads down, and it would take at least a year for them to get back up to peak drilling production. But there's people that are still drilling out in South Dakota, North Dakota, Colorado.
You in Arkansas?
Well,
not many, but
they could get back up in about a year. But still, the pain in the industry is real, and it's going to take a few years to recover from that.
With that, we got to end it because we're out of time. Thanks to everybody for coming in. As always, thanks to you for watching. See you next week.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.